G'day and welcome back to another Dbz Dokkan battle video. In this video we are going to take a look at the extreme challenge or extreme class challenge of the Broly event. So basically we are going to be taking a look at, well, exactly how you can take on the event. Obviously guys, everyone's going to have a different team build. I find this to be one that I had relative simplicity with. I think the team runs pretty smoothly. I think overall the team ran pretty well. I think everything, all factors considered, good synergy and decent flexibility in a team. Like, you always need a little bit of flexibility in a team. You can't just consistently run units always in the same slot. Something might happen. You might get unlucky with where supers are placed. Yeah, so you do need that little bit of flexibility just to kind of control things. But yeah, so before we talk about team build, obviously just to preface it, there are currently challenges that have been added to Dbz Dokkan Battle for the Ultimate Red Zone GT Edition and Ultimate Red Zone Movie Bosses Edition. Both of them have the same 3 challenges. One is for beating the events with an extreme class team, being extreme physical, extreme strength, extreme AGL, extreme tech, and extreme int. So if you manage to beat the event with one of each, you get a ticket. Then you get the beating it with the super equivalents of that, so super tech, super AGL, super int, super strength, super physical, etc. And then there's one for beating it in 7 turns. Now beating it in 7 turns is giving me nightmares, literal flashbacks to only pain. But yeah, basically there is obviously a challenge for beating it in 7 turns. I don't really think it's possible unless you have the 7th year LRs, because they are very efficient at taking out the enemy. So I do think it's obviously possible. People have done it. Maybe it's possible with some of the newer units, but I have not figured it out just yet, but I am working on it. So yeah, but basically there's 3 sets of challenges. I have been completing them as I can, and basically just showing you guys the teams that I use. So that's kind of the premise behind this video. Obviously for this video, in terms of units, I am running a double LR Cooler lead. So we have good old Cooler, probably one of the top 5 if not top 3 best units in the game, all the way from leader skill to passive to link set to just everything about this guy is incredibly good and incredibly powerful. So obviously Cooler, he leads Terrifying Conquerors, which is pretty strong. And he also leads movie bosses, and he gives an extra 30% to units that are on the transformation boost category, which is a decent amount of crossover. Originally I was going to use the Ginyu Force team, but when I pulled Cooler, I tried to build a team around Cooler just to change things up a bit, because I did originally beat Broly with a Ginyu Force team. Well, not Broly, but Omega Shenron. So I just thought I would try and change things up, because you could run either team. So I guess both videos will give you an idea about how to kind of run the event. But yeah, basically, to cut a long story short, we have a pretty powerful team. We've got obviously Cooler. Cooler is kind of running as our lead. Cooler's great. Obviously been through his leader skill, and we'll talk about what that brings us. Cooler raises his attack on his 18 key, greatly raises defense 1 turn on his 12 key, and yeah, activates his entrance animation once only, launches an additional attack that has a medium chance of becoming a super attack for 3 turns when there is a Terrifying Conquerors category ally on the team at the start of our attacking turn. He has key +5 and attack and defense of 100%, and you'll get key +1 up to +5 and attack and defense of 10% up to 100%. With each attack performed, which is pretty good. He launches 2 additional attacks, each of which has a medium chance of becoming a super attack, and he launches an additional super attack starting from the turn in which the character performs the 10th attack in battle. So he's pretty solid. He's great offensively, he's really solid defensively, only raw defense, but even at 55%, the raw defense is enough for the Broly event, even though the last phase is AGL. What I can suggest to you is, if you do have a 55% cooler like myself, make sure you give him crit gear as much as you can, and try and link level him a little bit. The big bad bosses will help him out quite a bit, especially in the AGL final phase. Then here we have his active skill as well, which obviously disables the enemy's action once within the turn and greatly raises his attack. So pretty solid unit, obviously great. I took a friend lead who was 90%. If you can, try and find a friend lead that's just fully built crit or has a very high crit build. You're going to need the crits to really get through the final phase, because you can get very unlucky with the crits, and if Cooler does not do damage, this build does not work, because we have good damage dealers, but we do not have the raw damage with our Cooler's crits to push through the stage, basically, to cut a long story short. So yeah, Cooler is obviously the mainstay of the team. To run through the rest in kind of order of preference of usability, I would say Tech Frieza, Tech Transforming First Form Frieza, is actually a first choice unit. Not only does he share a fantastic link set with Cooler, but he gets progressively stronger in the fight, getting certainly very much easily acceptable defense by the final phase, with his stacking, his attack and defense of 150%, and then also obviously that ability to recover 15% HP per turn is very, very valuable. So I actually think Tech First Form Frieza is pretty up there in terms of necessary units to beat this stage. I would possibly say the second or third most, I guess, in inverted commas, is then probably the Metal Cooler. I think he's very, very good. Obviously, he brings to the table his own unique abilities, and yeah, he really helps with the strength phases. Like he does the majority of the damage during the strength phases, which is of vital importance because you want to get through that AoE phase as quickly as possible. His 20% crit chance when there's a Pure Saiyan's category enemy helps him out a lot here, because Broly is a Pure Saiyan. Plus he also recovers 10% HP at the end of the turn. So to be honest with you, between him and Frieza, we are healing 25% every 2 rotations, not including the power of links like Metamorphosis, etc. So yeah, overall I actually think both of them are very crucial to the run in their own ways. Metal Cooler is obviously great for the strength phases. The Tech Frieza is actually pretty solid the whole way through. I actually really like how Tech Frieza's aged. The Metal Cooler form was somewhat useful. I'm not going to say it actually helped us out a huge amount, but it was somewhat useful. Anytime you can get chip damage in without taking damage yourself is pretty fine. There's no real reason to downplay the giant form. It could come in clutch potentially as well. Maybe you'll have Tech Broly or AGL Broly sitting at just under a little bit of health, and you'll get lucky with a crit or an additional or something. It's never a bad thing. The only real bad thing, I guess, is if you use an item, but even then, it's almost a worthwhile trade-off. It's free damage, essentially, so there's no real reason to not be happy about it. Then we have the Janemba. So Janemba is probably, I would say he's probably up there with the Cooler or the Frieza in terms of importance. Janemba is very strong. His ability to guard all attacks as the first or second attacker in the turn is very good. And then his ability to just build up that key in that attack and defense sitting in the second or third slot is also very good. So you end up with a very strong character. Not to mention his high chance of nullifying Ki Blast supers. Pretty good. The Ki Blast super won't nullify or won't proc during the AoE portion, but that's not the absolute end of the world. Personally speaking, it's not the absolute end of the world. It's got a great link set as well. Metamorphosis, some health recovery, links up well with Strength Cooler. They share Metamorphosis, Big Bad Bosses, Shocking Speed, Legendary Power, Fierce Battle. So yeah, they share a decent set of links. It's very, very acceptable amount of links. So personally speaking, it's not like the biggest issue in the world bringing him. I think he's great. He's definitely up there with Frieza and Cooler. I would probably say he is probably more important than Frieza because the strength phases are very difficult in this fight, and having a physical unit like Janemba that can guard is very, very crucial to evaluating how difficult content is, because he is going to remove a lot of the difficulty through the fact that he's not going to instantly die, taking a super like any other physical unit would. So yeah, on that end, I think he's actually almost critical to how this team functions, especially once he's fully built up. He can tank really well, and yeah, just overall I think he's quite a beast. Then obviously, to kind of round everything off, we have Broly. Broly's also pretty good. Obviously he's only at 55% for me, which is a real shame. He does take a little bit of time to build up, so you do want to let him stack during the tech phase. You'll notice during the tech phase I kind of left him on main rotation, at least during the strength and tech phase, and that was just basically to get him to stack as much as possible. The more you can let Broly build up that base defense, the more he'll really thrive as like a, kind of third slot damage soaking unit, because of the fact that his defense will be built up. His 30% or 36% damage reduction, I should say, that he will have against Broly is going to be pretty nutty. So yeah, it's just obviously that is something that's quite important. I didn't have to use a Whis. I was just concerned about the super attack. It was like, okay, well, am I going to get a very poorly placed super attack? In reality, I could have taken the risk. I just decided to play it safe. Whether that made the run easier or harder, I still succeeded. So I'm not going to question the decision to use a Whis, but at the same time, I definitely feel like, it could have probably been a bit more efficient to wait till the next turn. I also probably could have let Broly actually tank that and get a stack as well. So yeah, but either way, it's not really too big an issue. Obviously Broly's great, 180% attack and defense, damage reduction of 18%, crit chance of 18%, medium chance of launching a super attack, and then he gains after super attack an additional 18% damage reduction and 18% crit chance when there's a pure Saiyans or hybrid Saiyans category enemy. And because obviously we're facing Broly, he does have those abilities active. He's obviously also got his active skill, which does help if you need it. We didn't need it, but it does help. That key +6, attack of 60%, and attacks effective against all types can be some very clutch damage, especially considering Broly builds up attack and defense. Broly himself is very good. I think if you have a dupe in him, you see a much better version of Broly, because his defense goes immediately from 8,000 to 10,000. And defense is one of those things where, okay, it doesn't seem like it's a lot, but when a unit is getting an extra 25% defense, but getting that additional damage reduction on top of it, whether it's 18 or 36%, it does matter quite a bit, because of the way the damage reduction works with the base defense stat. It basically amplifies it by more than what you would see that defense amplified by, because you obviously have that baseline damage reduction obviously on top, so you're effectively getting more defensive point per defense than on a usual unit, which is quite important. Broly himself, very good, not on transformation boost, which I think is like the only shame, because if he was on transformation boost, he would have a 200% lead with Cooler, which would be very good. Obviously he doesn't have a great pairing partner, but yeah, he would be very solid. He's already solid under the lead, but he would be probably top tier. And then finally, in terms of like overall team, we have the Janemba, we have Tech Janemba. So take Janemba's just there because he's a very solid unit. He's a unit that gained a lot of traction, especially with Kula's new team. Obviously 200% lead, but just everything he brings, the ability to give support for more type key sphere orbs, the reduction of damage received with 2 or more rainbow key spheres, guarding against all types, raising defense for 1 turn on his super. I mean, this is a unit that can have 180k defense throughout a super attack and guard against all types, which is very impressive. And when you have that, yes, it's a bit wonky, but when you can have that, throw in damage reduction and possibly throw in support as well, it's a very good pick. What you try to get with each situation, I always take what's easily available. So if the support is easily available, I generally take that. If the damage reduction is easily available, I will just take that. That's generally how I play using Janemba. And whatever comes out, comes out. If you can get both, awesome. If you can't, you can't. It's not really like the end of the world, I guess, to not have him function and do everything. Under no conditions should you transform him. I know that sounds weird, but yeah, you probably shouldn't transform him. His evasion chance just doesn't exist here because Broly disables evasion. And so yeah, you're just immediately not really seeing the best of him, in that fact. But you can see here, I mean, like, we're getting both the support and the damage reduction, which is obviously very good. Now that makes him look really good because he's elevated Kula, both of them, to be way better. Immediately defense is higher. We are going to take damage here. We do have a Whis active, so we shouldn't die. We'll regen 10% health back at the end of the turn. 250k, it's really not too bad. You're going to see that we're going to have the strength Kula. He's going to do some damage. Again, it's going to come down to crits. Like, you can do a 12 million attack stat, but if you don't crit, you're really not going to get anywhere with it. Like you can see there, all that attack stat pretty much wasted because we didn't crit, we didn't do anything with it. Whereas you'll see a follow-up attack like this one, which is only 7 million, do an entire bar, if not more, of health. Even the auto attacks that crit like this do decent damage. So yeah, obviously it's a bit of a concern. You'll see now Broly supers us. Fortunately, this friend Kula at 90% with a Whis item active, we don't really die. The support actually helps us out there because we would have taken quite a substantial amount of damage. More, not huge, but we would have definitely taken quite a bit more damage. We would have still probably survived, but it's just noted that would have been good. Obviously, you'll notice I didn't bring any of the golden freezers, the ones that tank really well. That's just because their health threshold requirement can either really destroy a run or throw it in the bin. So I'm trying not to just use them as pseudo tanks for these hard events, and rather bring units that accommodate the event. Like Tech First Form Freezer I'd rather bring, because to be blatantly honest, he is actually just a lot more solid as a unit. Overall, his defense is better. He brings healing, he brings actual damage, and we win this event because of his damage. His crits, his damage throughout the event, his healing that he brings is the reason why we get through this event. Not saying he's the sole part, but I mean, it's definitely evident that he is a big part of why we're winning. My Kula, obviously, he's not nearly as built up as a 100% Kula, but I link leveled him, so his starter turn defense obviously very good, although obviously will be active at this point anyway. And that's the repayment I get because of the fact that I put crit gear on him. I managed to get a crit, which is super duper helpful. I think if we got supered here, we would have probably died. I think we would have taken far too much damage on Janemba. Not far too much, we would have probably taken a little bit too much. But it would have been the same with Janemba or Frieza. And I felt like I wanted to keep Frieza at the end, not off chance that we, just didn't get supered, and I'd rather just have Frieza tank all those attacks. But yeah, basically, all went fine. Everything was a bit long, but it was a fairly good event and fairly straightforward. I don't think we had any major issues, and I think the team worked quite nicely. If I could do anything to this team, I'd probably just give Broly a dupe. That would be my only change. But yeah, that's it for me. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time. Bye.